Hi, I was just playing around with this yarn. Now, for a little while now, I've had a bit of a thing about the idea of planned pooling. Now, for those of you that don't know what planned pooling is, it's crochet technique or knitting, I believe, but I don't knit. Planned pooling. When you hook up some yarn, variegated yarn, see, like this one here, which just looks like a random amount of colours all in a stripe, but when you keep on going in a certain way, you get all these pictures, all these beautiful plaid designs. Now, I follow this amazing lady, Donna Wolf, and her channel is called nastasia.com. So I've got to give her credit for giving me the link to the best way of dealing with such a thing as planned pooling. Now there. So she gave me the link to this, not me personally, but just generally. And it's a website, plannedpooling.com. There you go, that's it, plannedpooling.com. Just put that in. You can choose colours here, add a colour. So you basically get all the colours that's in your colour scheme on your yarn. Now, I bought this in the hope of it being something. When I unravelled this yarn, there were really long stretches of one colour, and I thought that would be too long. So I just, at random, just for the sake of experimenting, randomly put in numbers. And you can move the stitch count. See, this gives you a row of 87 with this combination of stitch. That's just, it's not real, I made it up. But I thought, just for the sake of it, let's see. And you can put in one stitch longer, and that's what you would get. Another stitch longer, and you'd get that design. And it basically shows you how many stitches you need to make as your original starting chain to count with your tension, your natural tension. You have to count how many stitches you can make with a specific colour. So in this case, how many stitches is the light grey? How many stitches is the dark grey? How many stitches is the pink or the white? And then you add the colour and the number of stitches. You can add as many colours or take them away. And then you can make the stitch count 1 longer or 5 longer or shorter or 5 shorter. And eventually, if you keep playing around, it gives you different outcomes on what your stitch count would give you. And miraculously, eventually, it comes up with these patterns. Now, these are just random numbers I put in. So if I found some yarn that had these colours and these stitch counts for each colour stripe, and you made it this many stitches long, and you kept it consistent all the way through using single crochet, that's the pattern it would give you. Isn't that amazing? So I'm going to have a go. I thought this one wouldn't work because the colours were too long, but that's why I put in this long stitch count here. I mean, it does seem that it doesn't matter what you do, it will work if you use the right amount of stitches for your starting chain. Let's have a go. I hope I haven't bumbled on and messed up the explanation, but this is an incredibly clever tool, especially if you want to do planned pooling and create a pattern without changing colour, without adding new colours, and without chopping and changing and cutting yarn. So I'm going to try and make a scarf with this but I have to find out what the stitch count is first. So just for starters, I've made a chain. There was quite a lot of pink at the beginning, so I made a chain. Now this is where we have to start counting the stitches. Now my only concern is there won't be enough on the pink chain to actually count how much stitches I can make out of the white. Now I'm using a 5mm hook. When you are doing your stitch count, obviously a bigger hook or a smaller hook is going to change the size of the stitches and therefore the stitch count. So if you intend to make something like a scarf or a blanket, you'll have to use the same size hook and the same relaxed personal tension for each stitch to get your stitch count correct. I hope that makes sense. So I'm just going to go along, make some single crochets along the chain and count how many single crochets is in the white until it changes colour. Now you're better off with a yarn where the colour changes quickly like that. If you have one of those slow change colours, a pattern like this isn't going to emerge because it'll just never work out. So I'm going to do that. I can't do it whilst holding the phone, so I'm just going to do this and show you what I'm talking about. I'll be back. Okay, so I have stitched up all the white yarn across this pink foundation row. Now I'm not counting the pink yet, but I made 31 stitches that were all white. Now yet there's a little loop at the end, but then it changes to grey. So I'm going to carry on and then double back on myself. One thing Donna Wolf of Nastasia.com said is do not make a rising chain. So don't chain up, just turn and keep going. At least that way I'll be able to make an accurate stitch count, I'm hoping. And there are ways to lengthen or shorten the yarn if you find yourself a little bit short of one colour or too much of one colour. So I'll come to that as and when it happens. So that's 31. Let's go over to the count. Right, remove. Right, let's just leave it on white because that's the white. Right, say 31. The next colour is grey. It gives you scales of colour here, so you can choose. Let's just say grey. Leave that blank for the moment. Oh, see, even two colours. That's good. So leave it blank for the moment and I'll come back with the new stitch count for the grey colour. So here I am at the end of the row, and as I said, Donna advised do not chain up one, you just turn your work. Oh, I can't do it with no stand. I should be more organised. Anyway, so you turn your work and you literally just go back on yourself. The grey counted out at 47. I'm back to white. I've turned it around and I'm working back on myself. Now, look, even putting in two colours, it's made a really interesting pattern. So even if you had two colours or three colours, like a dark grey, no, that's only two, isn't it? So only two colours, it would come out interesting. From a distance, it would still have that checkerboard pattern. I like it. This is great. So it's quite a lot of time later, and I have done as best I can a stitch count, and you start to see a pattern. Not just on here, what I mean is a stitch count pattern. Now, this is not the right length of stitches. There were 40 stitches at the beginning of this. and I put all the stitch colours. Now there were some which were like a marl thing and some solid block colour. So there's white, white grey, purple, purple white, and it anyway, lots of colours, and I put 15 different shades into this here. And let's see if I can, I'll make it a bit bigger. I had to make it small to fit it all in one page. So that's like a 50%. I'll go up to 80. Right, so I put in all the colours and their stitch counts. Now there is a lot of stitches in these. So as you can see, so it's 31, 47, 31. Recurring theme, white is 31. And 78, which was the white with grey flecks. So that's white, grey flecks, white. They don't have a multiple in there, so that's that. And then it goes, white it seems to be always 31. The solid colours are always 47. And the colours that are a little bit of what that are white with a little bit of whatever colour it is are always 78 stitches. And it took forever to find a combination that actually worked. And I think you're going to find that if you've got colours on the ball of yarn with lots of change, lots of different colour changes. So in other words, the more colours on a ball, the more complicated it's going to get and the bigger it has to be. Now I could stitch 178 in my first row, but I've only got a small ball and that's not going to get me anywhere very much. But I could do it long and then just have a scarf or something, or it's probably going to be a belt with that amount. So I haven't got any more of this, and I'm not going to worry about creating a pattern with that. But you could do it with 4 or 5 of them, and this is what it looks like when you finally put all the colours in. You get a bit of plaid. It's a bit blurry. If I make that small, it's a bit awkward to see, but up here is the 1 stitch longer, 1 stitch shorter button. Now if you hang on to one of them and just tap it, it changes the pattern underneath to, go back one. That was quite a good pattern. Hope you can see that because the sun has come out so bright it's hard to see, but there's a good pattern. And that would be with 180 stitches. Don't know if you can see that. 180 stitches in the first row, and then you just carry on round and keep going until the pattern starts to emerge. And I quite like that. I thought it wasn't going to work because it seemed to be so random. There you go. You know, it seemed to be so random. But eventually, if you keep on plugging away, you will get a pattern like that. Now, isn't that fascinating? And I really thought that that ball of yarn was going to give me nothing but random colours. So I'm going to have a go with that one. I might try a slightly larger hook because that's slightly chunkier yarn. I think that's an Aran. Can't really see. What is it? Is that an Aran weight yarn? Come on, focus. Even if you've got 15 different shades, 15 different shades, eventually they come out to equal numbers per colour, and eventually you can keep tapping that, add a stitch, add a stitch, add a stitch, there, or 1 stitch shorter, and it just keeps adjusting. That, keep your eye on this bit, and I'll tap a stitch up there. It will adjust the pattern. There you go. Another one longer, and it changes it all again. Keep going longer, longer. Now it's just a blur. 1, 2, 3, 4. Going backwards, this is. Back to where I was. There you go. And that's 180 stitches. And keep going. And that's what you would end up with, which I think is incredible. Brilliant. Oh, anyway, and it doesn't work. I mean, I've tried already. If I was to take out a half of 180 is 90, and it just doesn't work. So just put 90 in there, and that's what you'd get. That would be half the beginning chain, and that's what you'd get. So back to 180, and that's what you get. So there must be some kind of there's some kind of mathematical equation, but I don't know it, that works out these numbers will create this design with this many stitches at the beginning. Now, I'm sorry, my camera's not really focusing. They don't like to focus on a computer screen, but isn't that fabulous? I mean, I'm blown away by that. So anyway, that's enough. That's taken me a few hours to do that, but it's worth it once you've done it. And if you've got sort of 6 of these, you know, you can make a decent sized blanket. How good is that? So anyway, I'm going to buzz off and go and play with some other colours, and I hope you have fun trying out this website. plannedpooling.com. Thank you. See you again. Bye.